preface some quarterbacks retiring. Gonna go over the first one. Gonna go in order. Big Ben. I think it was last week. It's official. He is retired. So interesting to see where Pittsburgh goes. About any thoughts, comments, concerns in regards to Big Ben calling it quits.
I feel like everybody knew it was kind of time. I feel like everybody knew it was time last year. There was like that picture of like him and Pouncey, somebody else, I can't remember who, and they were like
I think
all,
I think it was Juju because Juju was a free agent
yeah, it might have been Juju, yeah, and they were like all on the sidelines after I think it was their playoff loss,
and they lost to the Browns.
and yeah, which that was a pretty embarrassing loss too because Big Ben threw like 4 picks. But anyway, I digress. And they were all like sitting there, and they're just like having a moment like after the game when like the field was cleared, everybody was gone, and it felt like that was them sort of taking it in because I believe Pouncey retired. Juju did come back, but that was probably because Ben came back.
Well, and also
Um,
the money was not where Juju thought it
yeah,
was. We all heard the
yeah,
contract rumors.
which unfortunately for him, the injury has not made that much better.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Ben comes back, and miraculously they made the playoffs. I think a lot of people, myself included, expected them to miss it. So I would say they did better than my projection was. But still, it was time. A large part of the reasons they were winning was their defense, Najee Harris, and their playmakers. And as great as a quarterback Ben was throughout his career, he just wasn't able to get it done. The last pretty much 2 years, because even last year during that crazy undefeated stretch, it was a lot of defense and a lot of playmakers, and some pretty simple offensive stuff that led to easy completions. Anyway, so congrats to Ben for retirement. Honestly, was never a big Ben fan. Never rooted for the Steelers in my life. But have nothing but respect for the guy when it comes to his playing career. I think one of the more underrated quarterbacks all time. He's definitely, I mean, like when you compare him, for example, to like some of the guys of his era, right? We talk about Brady and Manning and Breeze, and I put all three of those guys above him, Rodgers above him. But then you talk about like Eli Manning, Philip Rivers. He's got the rings of Eli, but he's got the stats of Rivers. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks of all time, easily top 20, maybe even top 15, maybe even top 10. I don't have a top 10 list off the top of my head, but he's in that conversation for sure. And I've heard a lot of Steelers fans sort of discuss, is he the greatest Steelers quarterback of all time? Because obviously there was Terry Bradshaw who won 4 Super Bowls. And I would personally would say that he is. I wasn't alive for the Bradshaw days, but just knowing how the NFL was back then and how it is now, I think to me, Big Ben represents everything that is a Pittsburgh Steeler. So congrats on retirement to him.
Yeah. In regards to greatest, I've never made a list, but he would be definitely in consideration in my top 10 all time. Definitely, if not the best, one of the best deep ball throwers, especially in his prime. If you want examples, go to the Jacksonville games when Jacksonville was good and had Ramsey and Bouye. He was, granted, he threw some picks those games, but he was throwing some amazing passes where guys were absolutely covered. And obviously did that, in his prime too, for the Super Bowl and such. But yeah, I can't tell you how many. He definitely set a trend for the bigger quarterbacks that are, can still be slight on their feet, but kind of take a hit or stand in the pocket and just make throws at awkward angles or with guys on them. I remember when Blake Bortles came out, that's all he was. Oh, he's the next Big Ben. Obviously not, but when people start, saying like, man, this guy could be this, when you start being a template or just a projection for some guys, that's how you know you're good, especially, really raw prospects that are good. But yeah, in regards to Ben and his career, I'm not sure if I mentioned this before. Obviously, if you've been listening to the podcasts, you may think I'm a Big Ben hater this year. There's a phrase: if you're thinking about retirement, it's time. It's a time to go because you already kind of have your foot halfway out the door, and it just seemed like this season he just didn't have it. I'm not, I'm sure Big Ben worked hard, but he just didn't have it this season. I think we all saw it. He was, especially even last season, he still had moments, he had more moments of throwing the ball downfield, making more plays. But this year, I can't really name many. I think he had like one or two good games. I forget one. There was one game where I was like, okay, that was like the one vintage Ben performance. But other than that, like I mentioned all year, it was just Big Ben struggling to throw 4 or 5 yard passes, or just that was their offense and running the ball and playing defense. So yeah, congrats to him. Hopefully his body is good long term, because he definitely took a lot of abuse with his style of play. So the fact that he made it this long is also an accomplishment as well.
And just random note that the retirement of him and Tom Brady have got me thinking about this kind of stuff. But I was thinking back to like, there's talk of like dynasties and the Chiefs potentially coming one and all that stuff. And like it's hard, to be a dynasty because I mean, even if we look back at like all the quarterbacks to win more than one Super Bowl in the NFC, there's only been one quarterback since the 90s to do that. And that was Eli Manning with the Giants. They won two. And then the AFC, there was Peyton Manning, but he did it with two different teams. Obviously, Tom Brady and the Big Ben. Like those are the only four quarterbacks over the last 20 years to win multiple, or over, I guess, the last 26 since Aikman and the Cowboys did it. So it's crazy how honestly, like most of our fandom as NFL fans, we've seen like Manning, Brady, the other Manning, and Big Ben like winning like I think over half of the Super Bowls. So
I forget, when did they introduce make the rules on free agency? Because I think wasn't it around that time, around after the Cowboys stopped the Aikman and them. Because I think that's all. Because we talked about this before. I feel like the NFL cap is one of the few cap situations in regards to like actual organizations that have it right. Because
yeah,
I think that's part of the. Granted, they also have to pay 53 plus players, which is also tough to manage those books. But because we see it in the NBA, like I think we talk about, it's like there's no real hard cap. I mean, teams go over the cap all the time, and yeah, you pay a luxury tax. Well, NFL, I feel like there's more like no, you can't go over the cap. Sorry. And then I don't know about baseball, but sorry, no one cares about baseball.
Baseball doesn't even have a cap.
And then I don't even know about soccer.
They do, but they don't.
Yeah, so it's like
soccer.
Like
there's no cap either.
Yeah, so yeah, I think that's helped make more parity in the NFL, and it's hard. Yeah, like you mentioned, it's hard to be a dynasty because all of a sudden, you have a deep team. I mean, look at the Eagles a couple of years ago, very deep team, and then a bunch of those guys got signed elsewhere, didn't have a good season the next year, and then it happens. I mean, only really the Patriots, like you mentioned, only real dynasty, and I think that goes a credit to their coaching and organization. And there have been a few other teams, like you mentioned. Pittsburgh's always been in the conversation. Packers have been in the conversation. And then I'm probably missing a team. There's been a few other teams, like Baltimore. I put Baltimore there, like a good.
There's been teams that have won multiple. Like the Ravens have won multiple since the last 26 years. The Packers have.
Like very far apart.
But quarterbacks, specifically quarterbacks, it was only those four that were able to win more than one over the last 26 years, which is crazy.
Yeah, so I think, once again, that goes credit to football's the ultimate team sport most of the time. I mean, I mentioned this multiple times. I mean, that year the Eagles won. The last four quarterbacks remaining were Nick Foles, Case Keenum, Tom Brady, of course, and Blake Bortles. And Tom didn't win. By the way, Tom didn't win the Super Bowl, by the way. Nick Foles won the Super Bowl, and the Eagles, obviously. So, crazy. But speaking of Tom,